it's 9:01, so why don't we jump in? Pretty light agenda today, so we can mostly talk about, here's a couple more folks. We can mostly talk about whatever you guys have on your mind, or some quick hit updates or things like that. The first one that I sort of forgot to send a follow-up this week, SRPC had our annual meeting last week. It went really well, and we have officially launched that arts and culture viewer. So while we're chatting, I'll hop on our website and I'll pull that link and drop it into the chat. And we'll also get it out in the meeting notes, so you guys can take a look. The submission panel should be functional at this point. So for people in our region, if you want to start adding arts and culture sites, we should be able to take those. The other sort of non-update from yesterday is that we're still waiting for information on Invest New Hampshire on the housing fund. According to Taylor, we will hopefully be getting some details later this week or early next. He indicated that the private sector program was going to be the first program to open, and that one would probably be done in a few rounds instead of just rolling applications. The three municipal programs for the per project funding, the planning, and the demolition, they anticipate to open at the same time, theoretically towards the end of July or early August. So that is the latest and greatest that we're aware of. What about you all? Anybody have anything on your mind?
Yeah, James, I can jump in real quick here. We had a brief presentation from the New Hampshire Business Finance Authority from a Jeremy, and I'm not going to say his last name correctly, but I'm going to drop his contact information in the chat. They have a lot of money that they're trying to push out, at least I think in this first tranche, 20 million. And I think it's tied to ARPA funding for small business initiative. They would like to push the money out through banks and the RPCs. I'm going to try and get that copy of the presentation from Jeremy. It's not finished yet, but they are open for business, and they mentioned RPCs directly. So I'm going to put his contact information in the chat before I sign off. Thank
Business
you.
Finance wants to push it through the planning commissions, not the economic development corporations.
I heard him say RPCs. All right, so
okay.
So if I misheard him, well, I'm sure I'll hear about it later on. That's fine, but yeah. So it's either going to be the RPCs or the EDCs. But I thought he said RPC. At any rate, I'm going to put his information in the chat. The first tranche is 20 to 25 million, and then there'll be a second tranche.
Okay. Well, if that would be a new thing for us, but we'll make it work if they want us to make it work. Yeah, I would be interested to see that presentation, and eligibility. What is the program for? Blah 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 blah.
Okay, I think for the first tranche, there's set aside one third set aside for underrepresented groups in business also. So I'll work on getting that presentation.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, James, one thing that I wanted to throw out there, and I sent an email to the commissioner thinking about yesterday's conversation about Invest New Hampshire. I asked him to clarify the 5-year required affordable housing component, which I still think is too short a period, but I want to make sure that that begins at the issuance of the CO for the unit and not at the time you either accept the money or the money is given to the developer. You need to make sure that that 5-year period is as long as possible as opposed to as short as possible, which is what I think the developer would probably prefer.
That's really smart thinking. Really smart thinking. Mikhail, is that 5 years set in stone? I mean, is that just set in stone? We can't change that. We can't convince these guys to do at least 20.
But that I'm not sure. I thought it was 5 years, but I can drop a note to them now. Instead of 5, what are you guys thinking?
20.
Full 20?
Yeah, 20. I mean, 5 years is nothing. 5 years is going to go by a blink of an eye, and then they're going to go right up to market rate, and you're going to see a lot of evictions.
Right. Okay. Send it out right now.
Yeah. To echo that, I think we need to think about the community's value in it as much as the resident value. And I think the investment that's being made on our behalf through the ARPA funds represent the taxpayer, and the taxpayer should get as much return on that investment as possible.
Okay. Yep. Understood. I will contact them right now.
Thanks, man.
So, Chris, to that point, they've also mentioned a few different times that if there was some sort of local requirement for reserving units, that usually it seemed like they were going to sort of respect that or let that count as meeting the requirements. If local zoning required something, if low-income housing tax credits were part of the stack and were bringing their own requirements. So it seems like even if the program had only a 5-year minimum requirement, if it got through planning board and there was a condition that this thing needs to be affordable for 20, because otherwise what's the point? It would seem like that would be the other way to get that benefit.
I would agree to a degree. I think that the planning board on its own cannot impose that condition unless it's mutually agreed upon by the property owner / developer. But I agree, if there's something in the zoning, or in our case, we would enter a development agreement. The couple projects that I'm talking with developers about doing, I have said that for us to put skin in the game and advocate for you, we are going to be expecting 20 years. And that would be part of our development agreement with them. And I agree with you that it could be co-occurring, that the first 5 could be an overlap, and then the 15 remaining could be just on the municipal side. But I also agree with Darren that there needs to be a more clear-cut value in the ARPA funds. I kind of like mic drops, so. Are we all quiet because Robin's not here to take up the air?
Maybe. Anybody have anything else? Paul and I were sort of chatting about future calls as we signed on. I was sort of hoping that we would have more Invest New Hampshire to talk about this morning. Obviously, we don't have that yet. So I was tentatively going to hold the first meeting in July to cover that. And then we had talked about looping back over to childcare. And Barb was going to put me in touch with Ann Grassi from Rochester, who works with the Child Care Center. So, would everybody be okay with me lining that up for the end of July? I think our calls would be on the 12th and the 26th. So circle back to childcare on the 26th.
James, this is Warren.
Hey, Warren.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I had actually the SBDC, and we're meeting with. We have an ongoing meeting with Jackie and I forget her last name. And anyway, we have an ongoing meeting with childcare industry, and we're going to be doing some professional development within the childcare industry around hiring, probably starting in the fall. We're just gathering information now. So I think getting somebody at this meeting, we had Jackie and we had Celissa at a meeting a few months ago.
Yeah, I think that was beginning of March.
Okay, yeah, time flies, I guess. So I think that's a great idea, but we're really diligent in trying to get some help within that industry to be able to grow that industry and be able to hire on a sustainable basis. Okay.
Yeah, that was something that I wanted to try and feel out before scheduling Ann was, Jackie had made it sound like they would potentially be coming back to this group if and when they had a more concrete ask about coalition building or anything like that. So I wanted to see, if rather than just inviting Ann, if they would appreciate an invite back, if they had sort of moved things along. Do you think that if we were scheduling for the end of July, you would have a bit of a preview of what that training and outreach kind of stuff would look like?
That's questionable because it is summertime, and the state has this program now that keep on canceling their professional development. It's been a couple of years now, and I think they're putting together a package of 4 or 5 different modules now to make up for the time that they lost. But yeah, I would encourage you to continue the dialogue, quite frankly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the more tentacles there are, I think the better it is.
Okay. Sounds good. I will try and set up some tentacles for the end of July then. Sort of on the childcare note, I think actually right now there is a ribbon cutting at Harmony Homes in Durham for their new in-house childcare, for which they poached my daughter's head teacher. Yeah, I had a parent-teacher conference with her on her last day, and just happened to ask her where she was going, and she's running the in-house daycare for them. So that looks like there will hopefully be some cool press coming out this morning about their model. They've gotten a lot of attention for providing housing for their employees. They've got a nice profile up on their website about that. And it looks like they're probably going to be putting a little bit more about their childcare philosophy on as well. And it sounds like they're going to be doing some really cool things about integrating some of the childcare daycare with their seniors and doing some joint programming, because old people like babies and children think that old people are cool sometimes. So that looks, I'm interested to follow that. Anything else to chat about?
I just looked at your the thing you sent out, that arts and culture. That's really well done.
Thank you. We're excited about it. If anybody missed the last call from a couple weeks ago, Jackson gave a walkthrough of how to use it. So if you need us to send those meeting notes or that recording around again, I think it was only about half an hour. Yeah, that's definitely worth a watch if you need help figuring it out.
James, this is Ginny.
Hey, Jenny.
Just wanted to say that the tool is fantastic, and we're going to be doing a targeted email to arts and culture organizations, grantees, artists, etc., that are in your service area to encourage folks to start populating it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is terrific. And Mikhail, I look forward to the continued conversation about whether we can do something like this statewide.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Other topics for today?
James, this is Charlie. I'll just quickly point out that there's some money for broadband being passed through the state through DOT and with support from BEA. And I think it comes in 3 sections. Part of it is for planning around digital equity and inclusion. That I don't think that RFP has been released, but the mapping part has. And I think there are a few folks that are really looking at getting some of the work that the RPZs were engaged in the mapping up and running. I don't know what that looks like. I think the infrastructure component is going to be led by the telecoms. I think the money's going to go direct to that. But I'm interested in working with collaborators on the digital equity and inclusion planning to make sure that anchor institutions and access is available to all segments of the population. So would be happy to talk with others if they're interested in pursuing that. So.
Yeah, that's definitely something we've been trying to keep one eye on. And I think Mark LaLiberty is running up that program. So we've got a contact that we're all familiar with. I haven't heard, apart from the release of the mapping RFP, I haven't really heard much lately. So maybe we can check back in with him. Rachel Dewey in our office is the one who's probably paying the most attention to that issue. So if you want, I can at least connect the 2 of you.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
Look out together.
We've been in conversation with Mark a little bit, and
Okay.
I think they anticipate the funding for the equity planning to be released in the next month. So that's the hope.
So do you know, is that something that they're going to put out like an RFP for one consultant to do something statewide? Are they going to be looking for like regional partners around the state to try and drill down into more like regional based things?
It's I guess it's hard to say, and maybe Mikhail would know better, but I think the intent was to have this done statewide. But I think there's some flexibility in terms of how states implemented it. So don't know what the language in the RFP is going to look like. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I can check with Mark.
Okay, thanks.
And find out. Yep, no problem. And Charlie, you want me to CC you on that communication to Mark?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else? It seems like we've sort of hit a point where we don't have that one issue that's pulling all of our attention right now. We've got a couple smaller things going on. All right, hearing none, I'm not going to do a song and dance for all of you. So if there's nothing else anybody has for the groups or no other announcements, we can call it a morning. All right.
By the 4th of July, everyone.
Thanks, James.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Have a great
James.
long weekend.
Thank you.